All right, real talk for a second. You ever get that feeling where your team is good? Like, really good, but you just know they're leaving something on the table? Like, they're winning games, making noise, but at the same time, there's this little voice in your head going, man, this could be even better. That's exactly where things are right now. And once you hear what's actually going on behind this latest move, yeah, it might change how you see everything. But before continuing, be sure to click the like button and subscribe to stay well informed. What if I told you the San Francisco 49ers just had a draft class that could define their future, but also quietly exposed one of the biggest problems this franchise has been hiding for years? Because that's exactly what's happening right now. And when you hear what Mel Kiper Jr. said about this class, it might completely change how you see this team heading into 2026. Let's go straight into it. The Niners came into this draft with clear needs: offensive tackle, guard, safety, edge rusher, tight end, wide receiver. And when everything was said and done, they walked away with a full class that included Dejon Stribling, Romulo Height, Callan Black, Grayson Holton, Carver Willis, Ephesians Pryock, Jaden Duggar, and Enrique Cruz. At first glance, it feels solid. There's speed, athleticism, versatility. But here's where things start to get interesting. The 49ers traded out of day one entirely. That alone already raised eyebrows. And then day two happened. And that's where the real story begins. According to Kiper, there were really confusing picks in this class. Not because the players are bad, far from it, but because of where they were selected. Time and time again, the Niners went off the board, taking players significantly earlier than expected. And if you've been following this team closely, you've seen this before. Dejon Stribling, for example, has elite speed. He ran a blazing 4.36 in the 40-yard dash, accelerates instantly, and has become a late riser among offensive minds across the league. But even with all that upside, taking him that early raised questions. Then there's Romulo Height, an edge rusher with burst and bend, but also a 25-year-old prospect with an injury history. And Callan Black, a tough, physical running back who fits the system perfectly, but was ranked well outside the top 150 prospects. So what's the pattern here? The 49ers aren't just drafting players. They're reaching for them. And this isn't a one-year thing. It's a trend. Over the last 4 drafts, using analytical metrics like draft capital over expected, the Niners have ranked near the bottom of the entire NFL. We're talking 31st, 28th, 31st, and now 32nd. Dead last. Let that sink in. This is a team that just won 12 games. A team coached by Kyle Shanahan and built by John Lynch, a regime that turned this franchise into a contender again. And yet, they're consistently leaving value on the board. Now here's where it gets even more fascinating, and honestly, a little frustrating if you're a fan. Because, despite all of this, they still win. Elite coaching has masked a lot of these draft misses. That's the truth. Shanahan's system, the culture, the development. It covers up mistakes that would sink other teams. But imagine this for a second. What if they didn't keep reaching? What if they consistently hit on their picks? What if they actually maximized value and addressed long-term needs, like the offensive line, which continues to be ignored early in drafts? This team wouldn't just be good. They'd be unstoppable. And that's the tension surrounding this 49ers roster right now. Because while they're winning, they're not maximizing their window. And you can see the cracks when injuries hit. Last season was the perfect example. The roster got gutted. Key players missed significant time, including Fred Warner and George Kittle, while the receiving corps suffered major losses, especially with Brandon Ayuk potentially on his way out. And suddenly, That lack of depth became impossible to ignore. Because that's what happens when you miss in the draft. You can't patch everything in free agency. You need young, cheap, reliable talent. And that comes from hitting your picks. Mel Kiper didn't hold back on that point either. He made it clear. The 49ers needed to fix their depth more than anything. And while there are pieces to like in this class, it's fair to question whether they truly did enough. So now, the big question becomes, did the Niners just build a sneaky good draft class that will prove everyone wrong? Or are we watching the same pattern repeat itself again? I want to hear from you. Do you agree with Mel Kiper's assessment that the 49ers reached too much in this draft, or do you trust John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan to prove the critics wrong? Drop your take in the comments right now. And here's where everything comes full circle. Because when you zoom out and really analyze what Mel Kiper Jr. is saying about the San Francisco 49ers, it's not just about this draft class. It's about a philosophy that could define whether this team finally wins it all or keeps falling just short. Let's keep going. Kiper gave the 49ers a C grade. Not terrible, but not exactly inspiring either. And the reasoning is crucial. I don't hate the players. I just don't love the value. That single sentence might be the most accurate summary of this entire class. Because when you look deeper, there are pieces here that could absolutely contribute. Grayson Holton, for example, might quietly be one of the best value picks the Niners made. A defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, he brings real production. 10.5 tackles for loss and 16 run stops last season, and plays with explosiveness and energy. He's undersized at 293 pounds, but he compensates with technique and effort, already showing flashes as a potential rotational disruptor on passing downs. Then you've got Carver Willis, a versatile offensive lineman who has experience at both tackle spots. There are concerns about his length and ability to handle speed off the edge, but there's also a very real possibility he transitions inside and competes for a starting role at guard. And if that happens, suddenly that pick looks a lot better than people expect. And maybe the most intriguing name flying under the radar? Ephesians Prioc. A rare physical profile, over 6'3", sub-4, 5 speed, elite athletic testing, and 20 pass breakups over the last 3 years. He struggled at times in man coverage, yes, but here's the key detail that changes everything. The 49ers run one of the highest rates of zone coverage in the entire NFL under Kyle Shanahan. That means Prioc doesn't need to be perfect in man. He needs to fit the system. And he might do exactly that. Jaden Duggar is another classic day 3 swing, raw, athletic, converted from safety to linebacker, with a 96 athletic score and real upside in coverage. Enrique Cruz, nearly a perfect athletic profile for an offensive tackle, running under 5 seconds at over 300 pounds, with the flexibility to develop into either a guard or tackle at the next level. So, again, the talent is there. But here's the uncomfortable question nobody inside the building is going to say out loud, why does it always feel like the 49ers are forcing these picks? Why not trade back? Why not accumulate more assets? Why not let the board come to you instead of constantly going against it? Because when you don't, you create pressure. Pressure for these players to outperform their draft slot. Pressure on the coaching staff to develop them quickly. And pressure on the roster, especially when injuries hit again. And they will. They always do in the NFL. That's why depth isn't optional. It's essential. And this is where the biggest long-term concern still hasn't been solved. The offensive line. Even with Trent Williams restructuring his deal and expected to be around in 2026, the reality is unavoidable. He's approaching the final stretch of his career. And yet, once again, no early investment in a true future cornerstone at tackle. It's almost become predictable. Death, taxes, and the 49ers passing on offensive tackles early in the draft. And that ties directly back to the mindset of this organization. When you have a coach like Shanahan, wired to win now, the focus is always immediate impact. The future becomes secondary. But in the NFL, if you don't plan ahead, the future catches up to you fast. And that's the gamble the 49ers are taking right now. They're betting that their system, their coaching, and their ability to develop talent will continue to cover for inefficiencies in how they build through the draft. So far, it's worked, but not completely. Because for all the wins, for all the deep playoff runs, this franchise hasn't won a Super Bowl since 1994. And that's the standard. That's the expectation. That's the pressure. So now, everything about this 2026 draft class comes down to one simple truth. If these reaches hit, the 49ers will look like geniuses. If they don't, this conversation is only going to get louder, and louder, and louder. So now, I'm turning it back to you. Do you believe this draft class will finally break the pattern and deliver real impact? Or are the 49ers setting themselves up for the same frustrations all over again? And if you want more deep-dive 49ers coverage like this, make sure you hit like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Go Niners!